Hey guys and girls, Board now back with you, and we have come to the end of Star Trek Discovery after 5 seasons. This is going to be my spoiler review of Star Trek Discovery Season 5, Episode 10. It is called Life Itself, so full spoilers as always. And there's not much to say about it. In some ways it's a typical modern Trek finale. It does a lot of the typical Star Trek Discovery things. There's not a whole lot of surprises. Some of the character stuff was quite well done. I feel by the end they were tying things up a little too much, which seems to be a very modern thing for these shows. But at the same time, I don't really begrudge Michael and Booker their beautiful fairy tale like ending, and as these shows do, it sort of jumps into the future and shows everything where Michael is and her getting to do the final mission of the Discovery and how they've all settled down. I'll get to that stuff. It just felt like they were overdoing it a bit, but that's not surprising with this show. The only thing with Michael and Book is, as I've said, I lost interest in their relationship a long time ago, and it just feels like they were always going to end up together anyway at a certain point, so why not just get on with it? Why did we have to have all the drama, which wasn't very interesting to watch? So I think that sums up my main problem with the finale. Is like, there's good things in it, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like anything really amounts to much. Like, it doesn't really feel that convincing, or like everything just feels a bit too easy. So I'll talk about, and it all peters away, which is what I'm going to say. That's the big takeaway, that certain big things which they've been building up all season, or like for the last few episodes, it all peters away, and it's not really that satisfying. That's my main problem with the finale. So I'll talk about the Michael and Mull stuff, because she followed her into the portal at the end of the last episode, and Discovery are obviously going to go in and try and get her back. So, but it all hinges on this. It all hinges on Michael trying to get to the tech before Mull, and trying to bring the tech out, trying to understand what the ancient tech is. So we get a series of scenes between Michael and Mull. At first, when she first gets in the portal, she can't find her, and there's a lot of flashy and stylish visuals of her in this portal and her in this other realm in this episode. And some of them were very eye-catching, I'll say. Like, there's one where her and Mull are standing at what feels like a heavily sort of gate. And I did like the visual of that, I will say. But there are a lot of very cheesy, quite messy visuals where they've gone a bit too far with the CGI, and it just looks a bit too tween and silly for like a Star Trek show. So at first she can't find Mull, and then she gets in a fight with one of the Bream, because they've obviously, some of them have gone through as well. That doesn't really amount to much. It's very kind of action movie and over the top again. And she ends up falling down some sort of murky like hole or something, and ends up in another part of the portal. And that's when she comes across Mull. And Mull's whole thing is she's got Locke with her. She's got him in like a small container, and she's like, this is the only way I could keep him safe. And that's why she's after the technology. She believes it can help him. And Michael and Mull at one point decide to work together because they feel it's in their best interest. Like, we'll find the technology together. Michael has the line, "Hello, gravity," at one point when she first gets in. They're working together, and Michael says they'll try and find a way to cure Locke. But that lasts for like 2 minutes, and then immediately they're fighting. Like, Mull doesn't trust Michael, and they do this over the top kind of Matrix almost fight where there's a lot of acrobatics. But then a couple of minutes later, they're sort of working together again. They decide, okay, let's work together, it's for the better. So these things just happen like it's sort of nothing. And I think that's part of my problem with the way they've written more in the later episodes. It's like they just keep flip-flopping over whether she's going to be like an ally with Discovery, if she's going to be in between, or if she's going to be more of an outright villain. I mean, I think for a while she hasn't been an outright villain. It's just that she's done certain things which are murky because she wants to save Locke. So I can appreciate that there's at least a little bit of grey area with that, but I just think the character has been so inconsistently written, and like this, they just flip a switch so often between her working with Michael and her not, and it just becomes silly. And there's a really silly like visual scene where they land in like a forest, and it's all kind of really bright purple and pinks, and yeah, it looks really cheesy, that stuff. And finally they come to a puzzle, and it's like to do with triangles, and it's the code they've got to crack to get to the technology or get more information, as it turns out, because there's another stage where there's like an oracle who's going to tell Michael about the past and about history and the secret of the technology. And of course it's not long till Mull double crosses Michael, because that really didn't last very long. She does double cross her and tries to get in herself, but that doesn't quite work out. And eventually Michael cracks the code, and it's like this orgasmic moment. I mean, it's really over the top and quite cheesy again. Like, it's almost like she's having an orgasm, and she sort of is accepted inside. She's welcomed by this heavily like figure who's like, I'll just call her an oracle. Like, there is another name in the episode, but she's welcomed by her, and she doesn't really say much of anything. She mumbles on a lot about like history and about kind of diversity and about like having a greater diversity, and like, and it's just that it's badly written, and it doesn't amount to much. I'm obviously not going to be one of these jerky people saying the message is bad or anything, but like, that's kind of what she's saying. She's kind of saying that Michael has to interpret the technology herself. Michael has to figure out herself, and almost like Michael is a little bit of the chosen one who can understand this stuff. But the basic message is then Michael has this crew and she has this togetherness, and they all bring a little something, and we're getting shots of them in different locations, and then that's all fine. I mean, that's part of the Star Trek message in many ways, but I just didn't like really then there's so much built up on this technology, and then we get more riddles when Michael talks to this oracle, and like, it's not really very clear, and it's like we've spent the whole episode building to this, and then the Mull and Michael stuff is just very patchy as well, because Michael makes the decision, then Mull's in trouble without her, and her friends are in trouble because they're struggling to get through like the gravity field. And that's another complaint, because that's like the 5th time this season they've struggled to get through a gravity field, it feels. And the episode is just too busy. That's part of the problem, because it pairs off with several different teams, if you like, because Booker is working with Who, because it's part of Who's journey this season. Like, he feels like it's sort of been building to this, and Paul agrees to let him go off with Booker to try and help rescue Michael. And there's a whole thing where Booker is trying to talk to Michael through the force field, like when she's in the other portal. So there's that stuff going on, and then you've got the stuff on Discovery with them trying to go through the gravity field. So it's just very scattershot, and a lot of jumping around, and a lot of bits than you don't necessarily need. Like, it could be more condensed. And there's some good stuff in there, but it just feels like it's all too much, and it doesn't mean a great deal when you're watching it. So Michael comes out of the realm, and Moore is badly injured, so she gets her up and like, we've got to get out of here. And that's when Book and Hugh come along to rescue them. But like, they come up with this whole plan to like, this hack sort of plan, like to get them out of there, and it's a whole thing. But then Michael just casually says to Moore, almost like, because Moore says, can we save him, as in Locke, and Michael's like, no, sorry, there's nothing we can do for him here, and that's it. That's basically the decision made. Then Locke is no more, he's dead, and I don't even care about that, because in some ways that stuff was a little tedious anyway. But it's just, again, it's just an anticlimax. It's like Michael just decides on the spot, we can't do anything. Now, she did say earlier, then maybe we can, so I don't know if that makes her look a bit douchey, but at the time maybe she was keeping that hope. Obviously she wanted to keep Maul on side, but yeah, you know, it's like, it didn't really amount to much. Like, they wasted quite a lot of time on the Maul Locke stuff, and then it's just a split decision on the spot for Michael. Sorry, we can't save him. And that's the problem, is the more Michael stuff doesn't really amount to much. So they get back to Discovery safe, and they decide the Maul needs, she's obviously in sick bay, so her wounds are being attended to. She has a little moment with Book where, like, she kind of says she doesn't really trust him, but there's a little bit of an opening there where they do have a moment, and he's like, if you need to talk ever, I'm there. And he gets told she's being passed, once she gets released, because she will serve a little bit of time for her crimes, but once she's released, Dr. Kovacs, David Cronenberg himself, will see her. So she's told that, or Book's told that, and there's this idea of, okay, we'll reform her, and there's definitely that possibility by the character, and that's the thing. It has been very wishy-washy with her, considering she's in many ways been like built as the lead villain of the season, although she's never really felt like that. At times it felt like they were gonna go that way with her, but I guess they've always done this in-between thing with her a little bit. But so there's talk of rehabilitating her. The other thing, apart from how anticlimactic some of that stuff felt, was the tech thing is just flitted away, because Michael just makes a decision later that they're going to disregard the tech. She says it to the rest of them, and she says, we don't need it. So she makes that decision, so you can see what they're going for, because she's convinced that they've got the group and they've got the generation and all the rest. But then when they say, because Stannis is a bit like myth, because he wants to like investigate it, and like he's very much approaching it from a scientist point of view. But then Michael says also it's too complex just to leave out there. So it's almost saying they're going to destroy it, really, or at least keep it safe from harm. But yeah, what a waste. You know, we've been on this technology for the last 2 or 3 episodes. And again, it just, in the end, it didn't really matter. I mean, I hate to use a cliche term, but a little bit of a MacGuffin in the end. It didn't really matter. So it's then that we get all the rounding off and the grand speeches, and there is a lot of touchy-feely type thing. And again, I'm not being an arsehole, because when those moments are done well and they really hit, I like stuff like that, especially in a show like Star Trek. But once again, I think in this show at times the writing just goes way overboard with some of the cheese, and like, because this episode is so inconsistent and what has led up to it has been inconsistent, it does feel like this stuff doesn't mean as much as it otherwise would. We do get Saru in this episode, like he gets involved, he helps with the mission, sort of helps with some of the politics with the Breen, like trying to allow Discovery through to help Michael, because there's disputes over, like, do they really have the right to be on that territory? So there's stuff like that. He gets his marriage, of course, the wedding at the end of the season, which was always going to happen with the president, and that scene's all nice and good. And you get individual scenes. Tilly comes up with this idea of a mentor program. That's her great idea when they're at, like, the wedding reception, and you can see that Raina is a bit more receptive, even though there's a cheeky little comment, and she has a name for him. I forget what she could, like Krabby or something, like some sort of a nickname, and there's a little bit of banter there. And then Michael and Book go off, and they're on, like, this beach. I'm assuming it's meant to be like a holodeck program, but, like, it's this really romantic kind of beach-like setting, and that's when they just get back together officially. We knew it was coming, but that's when it happens, and they commit themselves to each other for the future. And that's when they get a call from Kovacs for the next mission, for, like, this another, like, unofficial off the books mission, and they're like, Saru won't mind, and so they go off on a mission together, almost like this is their future. Michael also gets the name of Kovacs, like, when she talks to him about the Mull stuff, like, he gives her, like, his official name, even though it's sort of unofficial. He just goes by Kovacs, and the music swells up, so I'm not sure if the name is meant to be, like, something in Star Trek lore, because you do see he's got, like, objects from Star Trek history, and, like, he's got the eye thing that Geordi has across his eye, and I didn't really say, but Michael has flashes of, like, the history where she's coming out of, like, the realm earlier, and so you get stuff like that happening. It just feels like, in the end, this stuff and what it built to didn't really amount to anything that impressive or that different, or like, oh, okay, they really did something there. It felt like maybe they played it a bit too safe, and at the end here, everyone has their moment, and we fast forward into the future with Michael and Book. They're happily married, they're older, and we get some pretty good makeup, like aging effects, hair and makeup age. So I'll say that stuff was well done, which, no surprise, because this show has a decent budget and everything, but that was well done. Like, I was pretty convinced of that stuff. And they're living on a farm, they're happy, they've now got a son who's a grown-up, and he, of course, has joined in Starfleet as well, and he's going to be like a new captain. I'm guessing he's meant to be about 18, maybe a little bit older, and him and Michael set off for what is the final mission of the Discovery, and of course it's fitting Michael is going to be the captain for the final mission, and it's like a mother and son moment. She also gets to say goodbye to the computer, which is emotional, and kind of says, you know, it's all about new experiences, like a new chapter starts when an old one closes, that kind of thing, and says, don't worry, computer, you know, you'll have new adventures and everything, but this is the end, the last one for me. And it obviously feels like a big moment, and it feels like the sort of thing they would do in a Star Trek finale, especially from a modern show. So they take their time, they do tie things up a little too neat, I think, but they were always going to do this. She goes on a final mission, and she has memories. She has memories of the crew and her time with them. So we see that she's having one last memory of the past and their time together, and everyone looks much younger. So it is like a memory, but it's very nostalgic for her. And that's kind of, it makes sense because she's on the final mission of the Discovery and her last one as a captain. So that's the finale, Star Trek Discovery Season 5. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. Let me know what you think of this season overall, what you think of the show overall now that it's finished. I know it has a lot of critics, especially amongst die-hard Star Trek fans, but if you are a defender of it, then let me know why in the comments, because to be honest, like, I don't hate it as much as some Star Trek fans. I think it has had its moments over the seasons and has done some good things. Like, I don't necessarily think it's the complete shit show that some Trek fans do, but yeah, this final season mostly has been pretty rough, unfortunately. So that's my thoughts on the Star Trek Discovery finale. Yeah, like and subscribe as always. If you're new to the channel, you can support me for as little as $1 a month on patreon.com/borednow to help the content keep coming. But thanks for listening, guys. See you again soon. Bye.